So anyone at the back, if you can move forward.
Something's on
Did you turn it off? Yeah.
Okay.
If I scoot these up, is that going to be okay? No.
No, better.
This is a very weird place to be sitting right now. He's going to ask me what he's going to come up with the hardest questions he can come up with. And I'm going to have to shout the answers to him.
So I'm hoping that I haven't got to ask a lot of questions that we've got that we're sent in using the Ask Jewett. It was a very polite hashtag that we had for you, but
Quite nice.
we're just going to finish.
Stump Jewett.
We're going to finish the evening off now with just a bit of a fireside chat, a Q&A with Mark, following on from earlier. Some people in the room had already sent in questions. Because the mics are not working, we're going to have to shout. So if anyone has got a question they'd like to ask, if you can raise your hand and then we'll come to you, stand up and just shout for all it's worth, and then we'll put Mark on the spot for it. And then once we finish this, we'll carry on having a few beers and then retire to the pub downstairs for anyone that wants to finish off. Okay. So would anyone in the audience like to kick us off with the first question before I call somebody out?
Hannah has a question, Paul.
Hannah, right. Would you like to stand up?
Oh, she's going to get me. She already told me what she's going to ask.
Can you shout your question? Sure. Hi Mark, I really like your talk, and I had a question about parameters action. So it's really nice that you can click on and change the parameter value, but how do you go back? How do you change the value back?
You're such a stinker. I already told you I'm not sure. So the way you could do it in my particular scenario is I happen to set the parameter on the slider bar, and you could undo it there. So I think when you click off, it'll reset the values, but I gotta open it back up and look. So if you stick around afterwards, I think I gotta buy you a beer and answer your question.
Okay.
So you stumped Jewett.
So you get a t-shirt for that. There's a bonus if you do ask a question and it's a good one, or you stump Mark, then you're going to get a nice t-shirt.
You're gonna run out of shirts really quick.
Okay, right. Can I go next?
Yes.
Because I've got 54 questions for you. So I think it was 2 tugs ago, I was lucky enough to demonstrate the alpha of animation. So we were given permission from the team in Seattle to demonstrate that before it had been shown anywhere else. So we like sneak peeks here, don't we? Louder? Oh, sorry, okay. So my question is, can you share the progress of this, and when are we likely to see it in beta or in production?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to know who gave you permission, because we don't normally show alpha features. You guys saw beta today. So I'm not sure I've ever heard of any such thing as animations. What is this animation?
There was a whole presentation on it at the conference, so it's kind of out there. Right? It's kind of out there.
It is not in 2019.2.
Okay.
And it's not all that far away, and that's all I can say.
Okay. Does that class as an answer, or is that a stump to it? Okay. All right. Any more questions in the audience? My learned friend at the front. Graham, do you remember what the question was that you sent in? Would you like to stand up so everyone can see you?
So it's a kind of data science related question. So actually related to some of the recent acquisitions from Tableau. So saw from the acquisition of ClearGraph how that kind of fed into AS data, the kind of natural language and all AI to allow users to ask questions in there. But the other acquisition in the data science space with Empirical Systems, just interested to see what is going to happen with that technology, how that's going to be in the product? Is that going to lead to augmented analytics where automatic insights, things like that? I guess could you speak to the kind of roadmap of that type of data science?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe since I get to project out that way, Graham has to ask this way, I'll try and paraphrase the questions too. So the question was about empirical systems and when might we see some of the fruits of that, having just seen the fruits of ClearGraph with the Ask Data release. So we did talk about the fact that we were specifically buying Empirical because we saw a lot of value in what they could help us do around augmented. And where the initial sort of forays will be is understanding the drivers for why data looks a certain way. So you can imagine, one of the harder things that you guys do is understanding why marks are in a certain place, for example. And it turns out we can do a pretty interesting set of things to help you at least have a few descriptions of why that might be and give you some good hints to start looking into things. And so that is one manifestation of how it will show up, but it's absolutely in the augmented space, and it's stuff that we, I won't put a lot of dates to stuff this evening because it's a disservice to me to tell you something that then doesn't happen, but it's something that's a really active discussion. That was a purchase that we made in the middle of last year, if I'm not mistaken, so we got a little bit of a chance to get our teeth into it. And, I hope I get to come back and show you something soon.
Just to follow up on that, are you able for the group just to explain a bit about augmented analytics and what that might mean to a Tableau user, or what it means in general?
Yeah, so the idea of augmented analytics for us, the augmented is really important because we continue to believe in the value of human judgment. We don't think you're all computers. We think computers do something that takes an awful lot of time for you all to do, and to the extent that we can sort of, do pre-work for you. I'll give you an example. If we give you 3 descriptions of a reason something might be, you can be very good at picking which of those 3 it likely is. Having the computer decide which it is oftentimes far reaches what technology can reasonably do. And so the idea of artificial intelligence versus augmented analytics is really interesting to us. And we think we can do a lot to help you get to those answers faster as an example of that. So I hope that gives a little bit of a perspective. There's a ton more that we can do in this space.
So there's a question from David Pirret, who helps us run the user group, but unfortunately unable to join us tonight. So he's asking, as a non-tech person, why is Ask Data so revolutionary?
Because of its approachability, number one. And because of the relevancy of the answers, number 2. So, Ask Data, the manifestations of asking in most other products is simple search, and you get crap results. And so for a non-tech person or anybody else, if you get crap results, it's going to be a real fast downward cycle. So the fact that it understands what you're asking and therefore makes it much more approachable, I think is why Ask Data really matters. Now, I mentioned in there before, I think you guys are going to find that as you get Ask Data set up, that it's going to be faster for you and or your people. So one of the things that I do for a living is I look after some of the marketing that we do. And a very simple question that I commonly will ask is, how many leads did I get last month? Compare that to the month before, something like that. It is really fast to go do that in Ask Data. And so I think even for people that kind of know what they're doing, they're going to find it real useful. So techie and non-techie, I think there's some good stuff there.
I'd like to follow up on that.
Yeah.
So I think a long time ago, Show Me was one of those pivotal things in Tableau that would take away that technical knowledge. And Ask Data seems to have enhanced on that. What's next after this? Are we going to be able to talk to our Alexas and our Google Homes and get the answers put on our Chromecasts or our Airplays with the data that we want to know about?
Yeah, so thank you for that question, because we are all ears. And what I mean to say is that we're really interested in how people want to interact with the data. It's hard for me to imagine somebody going like this, tell me what my sales were last month in the middle of a meeting. So we're trying to envision what the use cases would be as versus, do you want to be able to text back and forth? You know, do you essentially want to have conversation bubbles going back and forth with your data? Is that a more interesting starting point, for example? Perhaps. And so we're really trying to figure it out. There's a bunch of people doing voice sort of recognition and turning it into text. And frankly, you know, those are pretty interesting. So tying in something like gas data to voice like that is feasible. It's just how are we going to rank that amongst the different things that we can do with Ask Data. So it's in the realm of possibility, and we'll listen to you guys how you want to use it. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, oh, go. There's one at the front. Do you want to stand?
This brings it a little bit more down to basics. Will Tableau Desktop ever get spell check for text inputs?
Do you guys want that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, duly noted. Spell check.
Go.
You mentioned in your talk earlier that one of the focus areas was governance and data management for you, for Tableau.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? Can you tell us what's coming in that area?
In data management. Yeah, I'm going to focus on a couple of things. The first one is the data prep. We're still at the start of that journey, in my opinion. There's a ton more that we can do there. It's been on a rapid cadence. One thing I am interested in, is it too fast for people to consume? Can you guys actually take on monthly updates? That's an active question in my head. But that to the side, we're on a pretty fast cycle with that, and we're updating it. You know, some of the things we've talked about is R and Python being able to be called from prep, as an example. And so that's one area that we plan to continue. And I have to say, the reception to prep, now called Builder, has been incredibly positive. And one of the things that I was most excited to hear is people saying, I get into the flow. I get into the experience that I feel when I'm doing analytics in Tableau. And it makes me feel like we brought a Tableau experience to a problem of data prep. So data prep, lots more we can do. The second area is we started to talk just a little bit, and I'm not going to talk a ton about it, but around data catalog or cataloging capabilities. Tableau has a bunch of metadata that's pretty interesting. And being able to manifest, first of all, being able to enhance that in different ways, including data about things that might be outside of Tableau, as well as having that data manifest in places where a user might understand better about that data. So understanding where it came from, understanding the description of that data, the different things that people that build that data might enhance it with. And so that's an area that's pretty interesting to us and that we're working on. We haven't announced a date for that yet, other than this year. And so those cataloging capabilities, another area of data management that we've got some active work on.
Quick follow-up question to that.
Yeah, follow up.
What about data lineage? So if we, as you can see, we get source data, we blend it, we merge it, we pivot it and all that. A lot of calculations happen. If I want to know where the calculation is coming from, what is the base data for that?
Yeah.
What if we lineage going backwards?
Yeah, data lineage, how much will we do there? I don't have a ton to tell you yet, other than some of what I just told you would suggest that, seeing where it came from is part of it. There's a little bit of an it depends answer here, because there are very extensive data lineage, sort of products and tools and processes that people have set up out there, and I want to be sort of careful about commenting there before we are ready to kind of give you a full picture of what we're going to do there. So,
Thank you.
more coming. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the question.
Maybe at the front.
So we're talking about Tableau Desktop. Will there be Tableau Server 2019.2 coming out as well?
So,
with the new features.
yeah, so server, I'm not going to say always, because always is a dangerous thing to say, but per our last set of releases, really starting with 2018.1 and even before that, we are, as we do those quarterly releases, concurrently releasing Tableau Server and Desktop. And it's in fact important. So for example, what I showed in there was the toggle button. If you be able to create a toggle button in Desktop, but then the server doesn't know what to do once you pop it up there, then it's not going to be very useful. In fact, it might be kind of confusing. And so we will launch those together. Yeah. And sometimes life happens, but that's yeah. This is software. For anybody who builds software, you know, like you plan and then you do, and sometimes the do and the plan are close to each other, and sometimes, you know, they're not. Yeah.
Cool. Cheers. I was impressed to see the kind of Tableau server interface changes you briefly showed
Yeah.
during the demonstration. I work for an NHS trust, and one of the problems we have is people aren't IT literate who are trying to get into the server. Are there further plans to try and make that easier to navigate and kind of easier to find your content?
Yeah. What do you guys think? Is that important?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you saw some of the starting of it there, right? And so I think we recognize that. And there's other things that we can do too. You know, improving searchability is another area where I think we can have a lot of impact on that. Interestingly, some of the metadata that we're talking about in the data management side can assist in that area. And so it's reasonable to think that there's things that we can do there to help. And I take the murmur of the crowd on your question as feedback. Yeah. Thank you.
Right at the very back.
I'll stand up. So you've got a bunch of competitors coming for you, and you're obviously still ahead of them, you know, and I have to say to you, but how do you see yourself staying ahead of people like Clayton or Power BI or any of those people 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the line? How do you feel like you're going to position yourself and stay ahead of that?
Yeah, my answer to that is kind of funny. I mentioned in there before where I spent quite a few years before, and so I do know what it's like to work in my position and have a perspective that's focused on competitors. And I have to tell you, Tableau does not think that way. And it is, you might argue to me that we should, but there are two things that sort of drive our product agenda. The first one is what you guys tell us. I'm not crapping you when I say, you know, hey, is that important? And people all speaking up, that means something to us. And we have a number of different listening devices. Now, I'm sure you can sort of pick all the things that we haven't done or that they took too long. And we get asked to do a lot, and so that filtering process is tough. The second one is around research. You know, Tableau was born, if you would have asked people what do they need, they wouldn't have come up with Tableau, right? So the idea of new ideas is really important, and so we have guys, Jock was mentioned, and there's an example as a technical fellow now for Tableau. Andrew Beers is a CTO. And he runs a technology team that's doing research on where do we need to go in the future, what are the new ways of interacting with data, what haven't people thought of yet to ask. It's those two things that come together. We need to be smart about competitors, but we also need to make sure that that doesn't become our focus, because I think we'll get off our game if we do that.
Right at the very back.
Yeah, talking about research, which you said that you're looking at a lot of these interesting things. One of the main key big launches was Tableau Prep, but then the strongest core for Tableau was visualizations earlier. Are you doing something on augmented reality? Are you doing something on getting beyond the two-dimensional space? It was interesting that all the questions we try to answer in our business are multi-dimensional. You've got rows and columns, then you add colors to it, then you add shapes to it. You always want more and more dimensions to get to the right decision. And this voice and interactivity is helping us go there.
Yeah.
But it's still not there yet. You want that additional push. You know, probably three-dimensional, probably being able to walk into a room with all my data there so that I can pick and choose where my answer lies.
Yeah.
When you spoke about research, I thought probably you are in that direction, but is there a big launch I see? Because I see you going in the other direction now, getting the data right. You got the visualization bit pretty popular. You got onto the other direction, but is there something happening back in the visualizations direction?
Gosh, there's a few angles in your question. I want to make sure I understand which is the main one. Is it around VR and AR, or is it more? Okay, so three-dimensional. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have something to tell you there. It's funny. This week I've heard that more than once, more than a couple of times, and so it is a lack of knowledge on my part. And also, I would be pretty careful to expose something like that. Our research teams, I think, need to sort of be the purveyor of that. So I feel a little uncomfortable answering that specific question. In terms of, trying to press forward on the different ways that, is visual analytics a priority for Tableau? Which I can answer that question as well. That's one of the 4 areas that I kind of put up there. You're seeing interactivity and other things coming out of us. And so I would say yes. You guys will tell me if that is true or not. Tableau has a decent-sized engineering team. We can do many different things at once, and so showing those 4 different areas is part of the reason that I wanted to explain that. Yeah, thanks for the question. Good question.
One at the front.
Mark, so you've made it clear in the presentation that having exported output isn't your main, well, wasn't one of the features that you like to bring on. So as product manager, what do you think the roadmap is to getting that feature removed, or so that it's no longer needed for Tableau?
How do we live in a world where static data is gone? I'm going to answer that question in a way that you may not feel like I answer it, and you'll let me know if that's the case. One of the big conversations I've been having this week and over the past months is actually around organizations, and less about the technology piece of it and more about what organizations are doing to be more data-driven. And at the risk of that being a little buzzwordy and sort of, oh goodness, here comes the data-driven culture talk, that is more, I would say, of a blocker to getting to a vision than the technology is. So all of us understanding what data is, not all of us, all of them out there understanding what data is, how it can be used for good, how it can be used improperly, being literate and then being fluent and moving beyond that, organizations having the processes in place to really make decisions based on data, having meetings where they stare at data rather than PowerPoint slides. That, to me, is the bigger change that has to happen for that to come to fruition. One of the motivators as well is a little bit of a bridge from the past. So the reality is that most of you work in organizations that probably have some, I'm going to call it old BI. Okay, I'm not going to call out any names or anything else, but and for people to get off of old BI, which is a desire that we hear commonly, there are some things that we can do to help without sacrificing our principles. Export to PowerPoint is kind of in that space where we're really trying to help people in that. So, bit of a long answer. I'm not sure it answered your question, but I hope so.
Carl?
Hi, Mark. I'm Carl. I just wanted to say, first of all, can you take a message back to Seattle with you? That in the same way that desktop opened up visualization for a whole load of people who never thought it was their jobs or possible to answer their questions, Prep has as well. You mentioned around how the monthly releases are actually really testing people. They are. But I also think the speed of the evolution of the product's really helping people get to grips with that. So can you take the message back from all of us? Thank you. We'll take that headache. And in that guide, can we
thank you for
start?
saying that, Carl. I can tell we're going to be great friends.
I just kind of would like to add on top of that, can we start writing back to our databases from Prep soon, please?
Right back to database. So, I hear you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's the shortest answer of the evening.
I like to mix it up a little. Sometimes long-winded data culture answers, and other times.
So a couple more questions that we've had sent in.
Yeah.
So you've just hit a year with Tableau.
I have.
What has been the biggest surprise for you in that first 12 months?
You people. Seriously. Yeah, if you would have explained to me that this could happen in my 15 years at another place, I would have told you you're full of shit. No, I honestly, and not to pander to Corey if he's still here, but standing out there in front of Iron Viz, being at the Tableau conference, coming to user groups, seeing the amount of discourse that happens in online forums and the answer rate in online forums, because people, the level of generosity in this community is shocking. And I don't just think it's going to change Tableau. I actually think it's going to change how IT is done. And one of the things that I've been talking about this week, and part of our perspective about this data-driven culture idea is community is a core part of it. And it's not just for helping each other learn, it's for inspiring and recognizing and supporting. And there is no community, you will not convince me there's another community like this on the planet. So I had a feeling that people really loved the product, so that was less of a surprise, but a very pleasant validation coming into Tableau. Easy answer, the community blows me away. Yeah.
So slightly more challenging question.
Okay, ready.
So as well as our event tonight, there's another event going on, which is the London Data Plus Women Group that also has a huge following, and tomorrow is International Women's Day. And our own Sarah over there has been doing a huge piece of work, giving a shout out over the last week or two, has it been, of women in the community that have been doing a really good job. But it's been noticed that actually on the Tableau main board, it's very male-centric. So can you share what Tableau are trying to do to help balance that up? Because you've lost 2 female members of the board in the last 18 months or so. So is there some internal mechanisms to try and help to balance that back again?
Yeah, so first of all, we're talking about a societal problem, in my opinion, and an industry problem. Both of those things are true, and Tableau can do better, and I recognize that. I'm actually really optimistic about Tableau doing better because Tableau has a heart. I believe that is different than other organizations that I have worked for and with. And it matters to Tableau that those things happen. And if you find the amount of support that we put into different efforts, I think it's unlike most companies. People might judge that different, but and women is one aspect. It's an important aspect, but it goes far beyond women. And in my opinion, one of the most important things about diversity is not just girls and boys and colors of skin and where you live, but also style and other different types of preferences and things. I think that those are really important. And I'll tell you, as a leader at Tableau, where I'm more focused than diversity is actually inclusion. I think inclusion is the root of making diversity happen, because if you bring diverse groups together, but there's not the opportunity for everyone to contribute and weigh in and have a voice and impact the outcome, then frankly it was a waste of time and a real tragedy. So we will announce things from a corporate policy perspective and things that we're doing, and that's not for me to announce, I'm afraid. That would be out of line for me to do. But I'm relatively optimistic, and you all and I should hold me to a pretty high standard as a white, middle-aged male as part of the Tableau leadership team. So, yeah.
We've got any more from the room before I just start to wrap up with the final questions? No? Okay, so to bring it back to a little bit more light-hearted. So we saw, is Corey still here somewhere? Ah,
well, there he is. You were hidden.
So Corey shared his story about the Iron Viz journey and being up on stage. If Tableau themselves had an internal Iron Viz competition,
okay.
No,
I would not be in it.
Who from the board would win it?
The board. Wait, when you say a board, do you mean the executive leadership team?
Executive leadership.
Sorry,
yeah,
make sure on terms. I'm definitely not going to take down our board
Well,
members. That in the
I
U.S.
saw you in there.
Okay.
Francois already tweeting about it. So.
Is he? Uh-oh. I might be in trouble. Who would win? I mean, is Francois included in that group?
Yeah.
I haven't. I mean, it's kind of. Man, this is the lighthearted one?
We've got people
So-
in Seattle watching.
Yeah, perfect. Good. All those people can see I'm really sweating right now. Okay, so we picked somebody to go to Orlando, Florida, and participate in Gartner's BI Bake Off. And the person that we picked to do that, by the way, Bethany did a fantastic job. This a round of applause. If you guys didn't see that, she rocked it in London this week in a similar event. But we got to pick somebody, and that person was Francois. So God help me, I'm picking Francois.
And you would have just redeemed yourself for showing what you would have done in there.
That's
Okay.
right.
Is there any final questions in the room before we conclude for the evening? No? Okay, so can we all get a big round of applause to Mark? Close out. Thanks everyone for attending. We're probably going to go downstairs for drink. Oh, Sarah.
Fringe Festival.
Yes. Come up and talk about it because it's your
I don't think
theme.
you don't know, tomorrow is the virtual Tableau Fringe Festival for EMEA, which I'm running with Lorna, who's sat over there at 9. So you can look at the details on Twitter. It's at the Fringe Fest. You can sign up. We're starting at 8 AM. We're going right through to 7 to 11 hours of Tableau talks. Covering everything: desktop, server, APIs, extensions, and it's free.
Yeah. Okay.
Carlton.
And the next, have we got a date for our next hub yet? But probably about 4 to 6 weeks' time, as per usual, right? So thanks everyone for coming. If we can just ask, as you go, if you can just clear your tables away to the back, just helps us and the cleaners to get everyone home on time. And thanks everyone for coming. Cheers.